They thought it was just an injured canine, German Shepherd, until what was hiding beneath him appeared. It was a quiet morning on the edge of an abandoned highway, the kind where even the birds seemed to avoid flying. A couple on their way to work spotted what looked like a large German Shepherd collapsed by the roadside, his black and tan coat soaked in mud and streaked with blood. He didn't mow. He didn't bark. Just lay there, breathing shallow, broken, a canine collar still clinging to his neck like a forgotten badge of honor. Most would have assumed he was just another stray injured in some hit and run. But when the man approached to check on him, something shifted beneath the dog's body. Something small, something alive. And then, it moved. What they found hiding under the canine's body left everyone speechless. Get ready for a story of unimaginable loyalty, sacrifice, and one final mission that will leave you questioning what true courage looks like. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This helps us bring more inspiring stories like this to you. The sun hadn't fully risen yet. Fog clung to the asphalt like a secret, and the distant hum of morning traffic was still miles away. Along a desolate stretch of road near the outskirts of Charlotte, North Carolina, Sarah and Miguel were taking their usual backroad route to avoid the morning rush. That's when she saw him. "Stop the car," Sarah whispered, pressing her hand against the window. Miguel braked hard, tires crunching against the gravel shoulder. There, curled at the edge of a drainage ditch, was a massive German Shepherd. His fur was wet and stained dark in places, from rain or maybe something worse. One paw was twisted beneath him, and his flank rose and fell in painful, slow movements. He was alive. Barely. "Oh my God," Sarah murmured, stepping out before Miguel could stop her. "Wait." "What if he's dangerous?" he called after her. But something about the way the dog lay there, so still, so silent, made her ignore the fear. She approached slowly, crouching a few feet away. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're not here to hurt you." The dog opened one eye. It was sharp amber, dull from pain, but aware. He didn't growl. He didn't move. He just watched. Miguel joined her. "Is he military?" Sarah noticed it too. The thick canine collar still fastened around his neck, though scratched and bent. No tags, just a faded engraving. Coda. Sarah reached out gently, brushing the dirt from his side. And that's when something shifted. A small, soft whimper came from beneath the dog's chest. Both of them froze. Then, slowly, the dog, Coda, lifted his broken leg just enough for the couple to see what he'd been hiding. A puppy. Tiny, barely old enough to open its eyes, nestled between Coda's legs and torso, protected by his own body from the cold and rain. "Oh my God," Sarah gasped. The puppy let out a weak squeak, nuzzling against the larger dog's ribs. Miguel's voice cracked. "He's been shielding it this whole time." Coda looked up at them again, and this time, it wasn't fear in his eyes. It was something closer to trust and surrender. "Help him," Sarah said. "Now." They wrapped Coda in a blanket and gently transferred both him and the pup into the back seat. Coda let out a pained grunt, but didn't resist. The puppy remained tucked against him, unaware that its world was changing. On the drive to the emergency vet, Sarah couldn't stop looking at him in the rearview mirror. The way Coda curled his massive frame protectively around the puppy. The way he winced but refused to shift, even to make himself more comfortable. He was trained for this. That much was clear. A canine officer. Abandoned? Lost in action? Miguel shook his head. He must have been through hell. When they arrived at the clinic, the staff rushed to take Coda in. Sarah tried to explain about the roadside, the puppy, the collar, the vet. Dr. Lynn Carter nodded. We've seen dogs like him before. They don't give up. Not until the mission's done. What mission? Sarah asked. Dr. Carter looked down at the puppy now resting in a heated box. Protect the innocent. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Coda remained in critical condition. Broken leg, internal bruising, dehydration, and the puppy, barely 2 weeks old, needed around-the-clock care. But what haunted Sarah most wasn't the injuries. It was the look in Coda's eyes when they had taken the pup from him. A flicker of panic. Then, acceptance. He hadn't just found the puppy. He had chosen to protect it. But why? Where did they come from? And most importantly, who abandoned a trained K9 to lie alone on the roadside? The next morning, the vet called. Coda's awake, she said, and there's something you need to see. Sarah and Miguel raced back to the clinic. They weren't ready for what Dr. Carter was about to show them. What was Coda protecting besides the puppy? And what secret was hidden deep in the scars of this silent hero? Coda was awake, but barely. When Sarah and Miguel entered the exam room, they found him lying on a padded mat, hooked up to fluids, his hind leg wrapped tightly in gauze and splinted. A nurse knelt beside him, gently stroking his head. His eyes opened at the sound of their footsteps. Amber, alert, and searching. Sarah knelt beside him slowly. Hey, buddy, you remember me? His eyes didn't move, but something in them changed. He didn't flinch, didn't growl. He knew she was there to help. Miguel stood behind her, trying to stay composed. Where's the puppy? Dr. Carter entered then, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blue fleece. Right here, hungry and loud, just like he should be. She placed the pup beside Coda's front leg. The reaction was instant. Coda shifted his paw ever so slightly, dragging it forward to touch the pup's fur. A low sound came from his throat. Not a growl, not a whimper, something in between. A sound of recognition, of relief. He's been with that pup for days, Carter said softly. Probably starving, injured, exposed to rain and heat. But he never moved. Do you think it's his? Sarah asked. Dr. Carter shook her head. Biologically. Unlikely. That puppy's barely 3 weeks old. Coda's a trained male canine, neutered most likely. Then why protect it? Miguel asked. Carter looked at Coda. Because he's trained to protect what's weaker than him. That doesn't stop when their badge is taken away. Sarah sat back, trying to absorb it all. Then Carter knelt beside the dog, lifting the fur on his left flank. There's something else, she said. We shaved him down to treat the abrasion here, and we found this. She pointed to a tattoo, faded and stitched over from old wounds. 07214. Miguel leaned closer. What is that? A unit code, Carter replied. Military, not police. Sarah's pulse quickened. You mean he's a war dog? Looks that way. But this number isn't from any recent rotation I've seen. Carter pulled a tablet from her coat pocket. I did some digging. This K9 served in Iraq over 9 years ago. Discharged after his handler died in combat. Declared non-adoptable due to aggression. Transferred to a private security contractor. Then, nothing. No records. Miguel frowned. You're saying he disappeared? Carter nodded. He fell off the map. Until yesterday. Sarah looked back at Coda. And now he shows up on a road outside Charlotte? With a puppy under his body? Exactly, Carter said. They all fell into silence. The pieces didn't fit. And that's what made it terrifying. Later that afternoon, Miguel received a call from an unknown number. The man's voice was clipped, emotionless. "You found a dog on Highway 48. We need him back." "Excuse me?" "The dog, black and tan, male German Shepherd, answers to Coda. Return him, and there's $5,000 in it for you." Miguel felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. "Who is this?" he asked, but the line went dead. That evening, Sarah stood by Coda's recovery pen, her arms crossed tightly across her chest. Something wasn't right. He hadn't just been dumped. Someone wanted him back, and badly. She looked down at him. His eyes opened again, tracking her every move. He was aware, intelligent, listening. "Coda," she said softly. "What happened to you?" No answer, of course, but the puppy stirred beside him, letting out a soft yawn. Its eyes were just beginning to open, and they were blue. Clear, bright blue. The kind of eyes Sarah had only seen once before. In a photo. A classified photo from a federal training file she had read years ago while working as a vet tech intern for military dogs. And now she remembered. The blue eyes belonged to a female shepherd once paired with Coda overseas. A rare genetic trait. She'd been labeled deceased in action after a bombing raid. But what if she wasn't? What if the puppy lying next to Coda wasn't just some orphan? What if it was her pup? And what if Coda had been hiding more than one secret beneath his broken body? Who is after Coda? And what truth does this tiny puppy carry in its blood? By the third night, Coda's condition had stabilized. He was eating again, slowly, and even stood for a few seconds that morning before his leg gave out and he collapsed back onto the padded mat with a grunt. The puppy, now officially named Echo by the clinic staff, had latched onto a bottle with surprising strength. He followed Coda's scent, curling beside him every time they were placed together. But Sarah hadn't slept, not really. The phone call Miguel had received haunted her. The number was disconnected when she tried to trace it. No caller ID, no voicemail, but it hadn't been a coincidence. Someone knew about Coda, and they wanted him gone. That afternoon, she stepped out into the parking lot behind the clinic to take a breath. The autumn wind was sharp, and a few dry leaves danced across the asphalt. She wrapped her arms around herself and turned to head back inside. When she saw it, a black utility van parked across the street. Not moving. No logo. Windows tinted too dark for street regulations. And it had been there yesterday, too. She stepped back into the clinic and locked the door behind her. "We have to move him," she said to Dr. Carter, who was updating Coda's chart. Carter looked up, confused. "What are you talking about?" "There's a van across the street, watching us. It's been there for 2 days." Miguel frowned. "You think they're here for the dog?" "I know they are." Carter sighed. "Sarah, we're a vet clinic, not the FBI. If someone comes in asking for a lost dog, we can't exactly call it a conspiracy." "He's not a lost dog," Sarah snapped. "He's a ghost. He disappeared from the system 9 years ago and reappeared with a puppy and a bullet graze on his ribs. That's not an accident." There was a long pause. Then Carter nodded slowly. "Okay, where do we take him?" They moved Coda that night under cover of darkness, transferring him into Miguel's SUV while Carter wrapped the puppy in a medical carrier heated with a portable pad. Coda didn't resist. His body was weak, but his eyes remained alert, focused. Sarah's uncle had a cabin deep in the woods north of the city, rarely used, stocked with old blankets and a wood stove. Isolated, safe. They arrived around midnight. No headlights, no noise. Only the sound of leaves crunching under their boots as they carried the animals inside. Once inside, they set up a makeshift recovery area near the fireplace. Coda lay on an old mattress folded over twice, while Echo curled beside him, still asleep. The flames flickered softly. Sarah sat across from them and stared. "What are we doing?" Miguel whispered beside her. Sarah didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "We're keeping them alive, until we understand why someone wants them dead." The next morning, Sarah went through her old laptop and dug through archived files from her internship at the military K-9 program. After an hour, she found the document she had been searching for, a training roster from 2015, Unit 07214. Handler, Lieutenant Eric Madsen. Dog. 1. Coda, Shepherd, male, trained for explosives and personal protection. Dog 2, Naira, Shepherd, female, scent tracking and rescue. Status, Handler. KIA, dogs separated for reassignment. Note: Naira presumed deceased in classified mission failure. Sarah leaned back, heart pounding. If Echo had Naira's eyes, and if Coda had been with her in the mission, then the story wasn't just about a soldier dog coming home. It was about unfinished business. "Naira didn't die," Sarah whispered. "She escaped. She had Echo, and Coda's been protecting the pup ever since." Miguel looked stunned. "But that means someone lied. Someone powerful." Sarah nodded slowly. "And whoever was behind that mission failure, they're trying to cover their tracks now." They both looked over to the corner where Coda was staring at the door. Not barking, not moving, but his ears were rigid, listening. Something was coming. Who's after them? And how far will they go to silence the truth? It started just after midnight. Sarah had fallen asleep on the floor near the fireplace, wrapped in an old quilt, the crackle of the flames keeping her company. Coda lay nearby, his breathing steady but shallow, Echo nestled under his front leg, safe and warm. Miguel was upstairs, trying to get a few hours of rest. The cabin was quiet, until the sound of dry leaves crunching outside broke the silence. Coda's ears twitched. Then he growled, low, quiet, not enough to wake the others immediately, but deep enough to send Sarah bolting upright. She looked at him. He was still lying down, but his eyes were fixed on the window, completely alert. "Coda?" she whispered. The growl deepened. Echo stirred beside him, letting out a small yawn. Unaware of the danger, Sarah stood, careful not to make a sound. She walked slowly toward the window and peeked through the curtain. Nothing but darkness. Then, movement. A silhouette passed through the trees near the edge of the clearing. Sarah's heart jumped. Her first instinct was to wake Miguel, but something told her not to make any sudden noise. She moved back to Coda and gently stroked his head. His eyes flicked to her, then back to the door. He was guarding them. Even now, even broken, even dying. She grabbed Miguel's flashlight and her phone, quietly creeping upstairs. "Miguel?" she whispered as she nudged him awake. "What?" he mumbled, sitting up. "Someone's out there." He was fully awake in seconds. They moved down together, Sarah holding the flashlight, Miguel gripping the old baseball bat by the wood stove. Coda watched every step they took, silent but locked in. Then came the second noise. A branch snapped, closer now. Sarah reached for the back door handle, then stopped. "We can't let them find the dogs." Miguel nodded. "I'll go check. Stay with them." She wanted to argue, but there wasn't time. He stepped outside, leaving the door open just a crack. Sarah moved to the window again and followed him with her eyes, and he walked around the cabin's edge. His flashlight scanned the woods. Then she saw it. Another shadow, this one moving fast, circling behind Miguel. Before she could scream, Coda pushed himself up with a grunt. His injured leg buckled, But he kept going, limping toward the door like he knew exactly what was about to happen. "Coda, no," she whispered. But he didn't stop. She followed him, bursting out into the cold. Miguel's voice shouted, "Who's there?" Then chaos. A man rushed from the trees, tackling Miguel to the ground. The flashlight flew into the dirt. And then, Coda. He launched forward with everything he had. Pain be damned. The attacker didn't see him coming. 1 second, he was pinning Miguel down. The next, he was on his back, reaming, but Coda sank his teeth into the man's forearm. Blood sprayed across the leaves. Sarah ran to Miguel, helping him up. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." He came out of nowhere. They turned just as the man shoved Coda off with a kick, then scrambled to his feet and bolted into the woods. Coda collapsed immediately, his body too exhausted to stand another second. Sarah dropped beside him, hands on his fur. "You're okay. You're okay. You did good. You saved him." Miguel held his flashlight toward the trail. "We need to get out of here." Sarah nodded, breathless. "Tonight." Back inside, Dr. Carter was already on a video call after Sarah sent her a frantic message. "You need to bring him back," Carter said firmly. "I don't know who that was, but you can't protect him out there anymore. I'll make a call to a contact in the Federal Canine Registry. If Coda's past is what we think it is, someone in D.C. will want to know." Sarah looked at Coda, bleeding, weak, but eyes still locked on the door. "He'll never stop protecting us," she whispered. Echo whimpered and curled tighter into his side. Miguel placed his hand on Sarah's shoulder. "And now it's our turn to protect him." They packed within minutes. Blankets, meds, the bottle for Echo. They lifted Coda gently into the back seat. Miguel drove. Sarah sat with Echo on her lap, watching Coda in the mirror. They didn't know where the next stop would be. Only that time was running out, and whoever wanted Coda silenced wasn't finished yet. Who sent the man in the woods? And what truth is worth killing to bury? They drove straight through the night. By dawn, Sarah's eyes were burning, her hands trembling from exhaustion. Coda lay still in the back seat, his chest rising and falling slowly. Echo slept soundly beside him, one paw stretched across Coda's face like a silent promise to stay. Miguel pulled into a quiet parking lot beside a small federal building on the outskirts of Raleigh. Dr. Carter's contact, someone in Homeland Security, had agreed to meet them here discreetly. They waited. 10 minutes, then 20. Finally, a black sedan rolled in. A tall man stepped out. No uniform, just a dark gray suit, silver tie, and a face that didn't match the smile he tried to offer. "I'm Agent Keller," he said, flashing a badge without warmth. "Dr. Carter told me you have something sensitive." Sarah hesitated. "We have someone. His name is Coda." Keller walked to the back of the SUV. When he saw the Bond, his mouth tightened. "That's him." "You know him?" Miguel asked. Keller nodded once. "Coda was part of Operation Sequoia, Iraq, 2015. "We know that already," Sarah said. "What we don't know is why he was left behind, why he disappeared, and why someone tried to kill him." Keller didn't blink. "Because he wasn't supposed to survive." The words hit like a slap. "What are you talking about?" Miguel demanded. Keller looked at them both. There was a cover-up, a Black Ops mission that went sideways. The official story was that all units were wiped out in a blast. But Coda made it out. So did a female shepherd, Naira. They fled the site before recovery teams arrived. Some believed the dogs had been taken by insurgents. Others knew better. "Knew what?" Sarah whispered. Keller lowered his voice. "That the dogs ran because they witnessed something. Something they weren't supposed to." A civilian village hit by mistake. Children, families, all gone. The military tried to erase the incident, seal the reports, but Coda and Duinira disappeared before they could be eliminated. Miguel shook his head in disbelief. You're saying they wanted the dogs dead? To hide a war crime? Keller looked them dead in the eye. Yes. Silence fell like a weight. Sarah's throat tightened. But why come after him now, after all these years? Because they didn't know he was alive, Keller said. Not until he showed up again. With the pup. Sarah stepped forward, her voice shaking. You're not taking him. He's injured. He's a hero, and he saved that puppy's life. I'm not here to take him, Keller replied calmly. I'm here to keep him alive, and to get him to the one place that can protect him now, federal witness custody for animal cases. There's a secured facility in Virginia for retired military canines. No press, no records. But what about Echo? Miguel asked. They belong together. They'll stay together, Keller said. That's my promise. Coda suddenly lifted his head, weak, but watching, as if he understood every word. Keller stepped closer and crouched beside the open door. I'm sorry, boy, he whispered. We failed you once. We won't again. Coda stared at him for a long time, then, slowly, let his head drop back in. A sign of surrender. Or maybe trust. 1 hour later, they transferred Coda and Echo into a secured transport unit. The puppy whined at first, but Coda nudged him gently, calming him. They curled together in a blanket as the doors closed. Sarah stepped back, heartbreaking. I feel like I'm giving up a part of myself, she whispered. Keller placed a hand on her shoulder. You didn't just save a dog. You saved the only witness to a crime no one wanted the world to remember. Miguel asked, and the men who came after him? We'll find them, Keller said. We're already tracing the contractor who placed that anonymous call. This goes deeper than you think. As the van pulled away, Sarah watched until it disappeared, and then she cried, not just out of sadness, but relief. Because Coda and Echo had made it through something few ever could. They had survived war, betrayal, and silence. Now, maybe, just maybe, they could have peace. But the question still lingered in her mind. What if Naira wasn't dead? And what if someone else out there still knew the truth? Weeks passed. The story never made the news. No headlines, no press briefings, no viral videos. The people who needed to keep it buried had done their jobs well. But behind the scenes, things were moving. Coda and Echo were now safe in the rolling hills of Virginia, in a federal protection facility disguised as a retired canine rehabilitation center. No one knew the dogs' real identities, and that was the point. What mattered now was healing. Sarah and Miguel visited every weekend. Coda was stronger. His leg had healed more than anyone expected, thanks to advanced treatment and his own stubborn resilience. He could now walk slowly without assistance. His eyes were still alert, but calmer now, no longer scanning every door for danger. Echo, on the other hand, had turned into a whirlwind of mischief. He'd grown fast, faster than normal, as if fueled by pure survival instinct. He loved to tug on Coda's ear and steal food from the other pens. But most of all, he never strayed far from Coda's side. Wherever the older dog went, Echo followed, a shadow with a wagging tail. On a particularly quiet Saturday morning, Sarah arrived early while Miguel stopped for coffee. She sat under the large oak tree near the back of the property, watching Coda limp toward her with Echo bounding beside him. You're looking stronger, she whispered, as Coda lay his head in her lap. She scratched behind his ears. You knew what you were doing, didn't you? All this time, you were on a mission. Echo let out a bark, sharp and high-pitched. then chased a butterfly into the grass. A staff member approached with a clipboard. "You're Sarah Dawson, right?" "Yes." "We found something," the woman said, holding out a plastic evidence bag. Inside it was a small rusted tag, half melted, scorched around the edges. This was recovered from the original blast site in Iraq last month. An anonymous tip led our team to a buried supply cache. This was inside. Sarah took the bag. The tag read, "Nera," and beneath it, K9 Unit 07214. If she dies, he dies fighting. Her throat tightened. "She was real," Sarah whispered. "She was his." The staff member nodded. "We think she survived the blast. For a while, at least. Maybe long enough to give birth. Maybe long enough to find him." Sarah looked out at Echo, now rolling in dirt, barking at nothing. A symbol of what had lived, through everything that was supposed to die. When Miguel arrived with coffee, she showed him the tag. His eyes widened. "This means Echo's more than just a lucky survivor." "He's a legacy," Sarah said. And Coda carried it, literally, through the fire. That night, just before the facility lights dimmed, Coda limped to the window of his pen and let out a long, low howl. It wasn't one of bone. It was something older, deeper. A call. Echo woke from his nap and padded over to him. The two sat side by side, watching the moon rise. Sarah, who stayed longer than usual, saw it from across the property. She walked up to the fence, tears in her eyes. "You're still waiting for her, aren't you?" she whispered. Coda turned his head slightly, meeting her gaze. He didn't blink, didn't move, just held her there in the silence. Echo pressed against his side and licked his chin. And that's when Sarah made her decision. She called Miguel the next morning. "We're going to file the paperwork." "For what?" he asked. "For both of them. We're bringing them home." But just as peace seemed within reach, something happened. At the vet's office, where Echo was scheduled for a final wellness exam, a new file appeared in the system, a flagged report from a private security firm overseas. The report listed one female German Shepherd, presumed dead, recently spotted near the Syrian border, dragging a chain behind her. Codename, Naira. Could it be possible? Could she still be alive? And if she is, will Coda ever see her again? 3 months later, the wind rolled across the Virginia hills like a quiet breath. The rehabilitation facility was calm, golden with late summer light. And then, a car pulled in. Unmarked. Government plate. Out stepped a handler with soft eyes and worn boots. She opened the back of the vehicle slowly. Out came a dog. Thin, limping, scarred, but alive. Naira. When the staff brought Coda to the edge of the main yard, he didn't bark. He didn't move. He just froze. Then, a low whimper escaped his throat. Naira stopped. And then, she ran, as fast as her broken leg allowed. The two collided at the fence, paw against paw, noses touching through the wire. Echo watched from a distance, tail wagging. He didn't know what was happening. Not fully. But he knew what it felt like. Family. Sarah stood silently at the edge of the hill, hand over her mouth. Miguel wiped his eyes. Coda and Naira stood there for what felt like forever, not making a sound, just breathing. Together again. A year later, the family lived on 5 acres just outside Asheville. Sarah and Miguel had adopted both Coda and Echo. Naira, now too old and too injured for duty, spent her days sleeping in the sun. Coda still limped, but his spirit had healed. He watched the fields like a retired general, alert, proud. Echo had grown into a stunning adult shepherd, strong, fast, sharp-eyed, a dog born for something more. And one morning, It happened. A local child went missing near the wooded trail behind the property. Before the search teams arrived, Echo picked up the scent and ran. 30 minutes later, Echo returned with the boy. Cold, scared, but safe. Coda barked once, just once, as if to say, mission complete. Sarah knelt beside Echo, tears in her eyes. "You were born for this," she whispered. Echo wagged his tail, looked to Coda, and then lay beside him. 2 generations, 2 survivors, 1 legacy. If this story touched your heart, don't forget, loyalty, love, and courage are never forgotten. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who believes in second chances.